Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm so glad you're here. This is your go-to space for honest conversations, trending topics, expert insights, and a whole lot more. Whether you're here to learn, get inspired, or just hang out, you're in the right place. So grab a seat, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into today's broadcast.
Happy 4th of July, everyone. Well, many of us are probably thinking about fireworks and barbecues today. There have been some, other kinds of fireworks going off in the political world. A bit of a surprise drop today.
Absolutely. A pretty big one, actually. Earlier today in Iowa, Donald Trump introduced something he's calling the One Big Beautiful Bill.
One Big Beautiful Bill.
Yeah. And, while the name sounds kind of catchy, maybe a bit fun, our sources are saying this is serious. This could potentially really reshape America's economy and its whole approach to energy policy.
Right. Okay. So let's unpack this then. For you listening, our goal here, our mission for this deep dive is really to get past the headlines. What's actually in this bill? Why the beautiful label from Trump? And, what could it really mean down the line for the country's future? We're going to dig into the source material we have and pull out the key bits for you. So let's jump right into the core proposals. What are the main pieces of this One Big Beautiful Bill? Looks like three main things. First, bringing back the Trump-era tax cuts. So that means, lower corporate taxes mainly, and those individual cuts that tended to help higher earners more. Second, a pretty big proposed increase in defense spending, military spending. And third, this is a big one, getting rid of all the clean energy tax credits, just eliminating them.
Right. And it's interesting how supporters are framing this. They're pitching it as, an America First plan, the idea being cut taxes to boost the economy, beef up national security, and stop what they see as wasteful spending on green energy.
Okay, but there's a pretty significant but here, isn't there? Our sources are pointing this out quite clearly, and this is where it gets, really interesting. Experts are already projecting this could add, something like $3.3 trillion to the national debt over 10 years?
That's the number being floated, yes. $3.3 trillion.
Oh, wow. Just to give that some context for everyone, that's adding the entire yearly economic output of Germany, roughly, onto the U.S. debt.
It's a huge figure, and it immediately raises a really critical question, doesn't it? How do the proponents square that circle? How do they justify adding so much debt, especially if a goal is often, fiscal responsibility? Is that cost just seen as, worth it to achieve the bill's other goals?
Yeah, that $3.3 trillion isn't just some number on a spreadsheet, right? It has real effects. It would put immense pressure on the government's finances and, eventually on the public, too. So what are those ripple effects? What could we actually see happen if that much debt gets added?
Well, yeah, it could trigger a whole cascade of things. I mean, think about it. More government borrowing means more demand for loans. That could easily push up interest rates, not just for the government, but, for mortgages, car loans, business investment, everything.
Okay, higher borrowing costs for everyone.
Potentially, yes. And you might also see inflation tick up, making everyday things, groceries, gas, you name it, more expensive. And then longer term, you start thinking about tough choices down the road, maybe future cuts to programs people rely on like Medicare or education funding, just to manage that debt load.
And drilling down into those tax cuts specifically, our sources are pretty clear about who stands to gain the most, right? It seems to be mainly large corporations and higher income families.
That's generally the analysis, yes. While those groups might see, fairly immediate and significant benefits for middle-class folks, working families, they might not see much direct benefit from the tax cuts themselves. But they could still feel the pinch later on from, say, higher interest rates or potential cuts to services due to that bigger national debt. It's a real trade-off.
Sounds like a win now, pay later scenario for some, but maybe pay later for everyone else. And speaking of long-term impacts, let's shift to that third pillar, clean energy. The bill proposes getting rid of all the clean energy tax credits. So things like support for solar panels, electric vehicles, that goes away.
That's the proposal, and it really highlights the clash of perspectives here. Supporters would argue, look, we're cutting wasteful spending, these subsidies are inefficient.
Okay.
But critics, on the other hand, are saying this is a huge step backward, especially, with climate change being such a pressing global issue, they see it as undermining progress.
What about the practical side? I mean, those credits, they did help make things like solar panels or EVs more affordable, didn't they? They brought the price down for regular people and businesses. So taking them away, does that mean green energy development slows down, fewer green jobs, Less innovation?
That's certainly the concern, yes. Those credits were designed specifically to accelerate adoption and innovation. Removing them could definitely slow the transition. And if you connect that to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
there's a risk the U.S. could lose ground in the global race for clean technology. You see other countries, China's a key example, investing heavily in renewables, in batteries, in EVs. Pulling back on U.S. support could create a competitive disadvantage for American companies and workers in that, rapidly growing global market.
Right. So after laying all that out, the economics, the environmental side,
Yeah.
it brings us back to that name. Why call it the One Big Beautiful Bill? What's the strategy behind that specific label?
Well, the naming is very strategic and very characteristic of Donald Trump, wouldn't you say?
Definitely fits the brand.
Exactly. It's big, it's bold, it's designed to grab headlines, absolutely, and to energize his supporters. It also very clearly draws a line in the sand, right? It differentiates his vision sharply from, say, the current Biden administration's policies on tax and energy. For those who support it, the beauty lies in that contrast. It represents to them a return to policies they see as promoting economic strength, a strong defense, without the spending on green initiatives they view as unnecessary or, well, wasteful.
Yeah, it really hammers home that phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Because for some, like you said, this might look like strong, decisive leadership, cutting taxes, boosting defense, simplifying things. But for others, it looks like a really significant gamble, a gamble with the country's finances and its environmental future, with potentially serious consequences down the road.
Ultimately, the bill itself, the name, the proposals, it's a package deal reflecting what seem to be the core tenets of his campaign thinking. Low taxes, strong military, and pulling back significantly on government support for green energy. It's a very clear statement of priorities.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the One Big Beautiful Bill, lots to think about. We hope this gives you, our listener, a clearer picture to consider the different angles. Is this approach, a net positive for the country now? Or does it pose too many risks for the future?
Exactly. Will it achieve the goals its proponents claim, like boosting the economy in a sustainable way? Or could the debt and the environmental shifts end up harming future generations?
And maybe a final thought for you to mull over, something broader. When we see these kinds of comprehensive policy proposals, ones that bundle together really big changes in taxes, spending, energy, all at once, how does that force us to weigh those immediate, maybe more visible benefits against the potentially much longer-term interconnected consequences across all these different areas?
It's a complex balancing act, isn't it? Something to keep thinking about long after the holiday weekend.